You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. My name is Joe George. You find me on Twitter at Joe George Radio. The Bulls win this game 119-89 over the Washington Wizards, their final home game of the season. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. You can now use that code officially to buy tickets for the play-in game on Wednesday night against the Miami Heat because the Chicago Bulls are the 9 seed in the Eastern Conference. So the play-in is set. The Bulls dominated this game. We'll kind of just talk about what happened tonight's game, the play-in tournament. This thing was a blowout from start to finish. We'll talk about Julian Phillips, his career night that we saw in this one, and just an interesting wrinkle. And maybe it's just the time of the year, but maybe it's something. We'll talk about it with THT being the first man off the bench in this game. So 9 seed official, the Bulls win this game very easily. Now look, this was a gross start to the game for both these teams. One team tanking for Cooper Flagg, one team just not playing well to start the game without Josh Giddey out there, obviously just getting some rest. But the Bulls are up 26-24 after the first quarter. The Bulls are 1 for 10 from 3. The Wizards are 2 for 12 from 3 in the first quarter. So the Bulls have a 2-point lead, and then we're not even going to waste time. We are going to get right into it because this game was over as soon as the second quarter started. That's going to be the turning point of tonight's game.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
So in the second quarter, after the Bulls started very slow, they just dominated the second quarter. The first quarter, again, it just was not great shooting, but the Bulls outscored the Wizards 32-19 in the second quarter, and it was ball game from there. They then outscored the Wizards 38-25 in the third, and then in the fourth quarter with mostly garbage time happening, even though we saw quite a few of the, Matas Buzelis play pretty deep into the fourth quarter there. Kind of surprised, just want to give your guys some rest. It was secure. You were going to be the 9 seed. If that's what Billy Donovan is worried about there, you're not going to blow this game to the Wizards. So guys stayed in there for a little bit, but the second quarter just overall was the turning point in tonight's game because they just smoked a team that's trying their best to lose games. Now they are playing some young guys. Obviously we saw Alex Sarr tonight. He was not good. The Wizards' top pick, 3 for 15 from the field himself, only scored 7 points in this game. AJ Johnson, who's been pretty solid for him. I know, if you listen to Ryan Russillo's podcast, he's a big proponent of him as well in the way he's been playing. He was also not good in this one. So the Bulls just handled their business as they were supposed to in this game. So let's talk about some of the guys and their performances in this game. So the Bulls shot the ball pretty well after starting in a rough way. So Matas Buzelis, 20 points on the night, goes 7 for 14 from the field, 3 from 6 from the three-point line, gets 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks. So he does a little bit of everything for the Bulls in this game. Then Julian Phillips, career night, first career 20-point-plus game for Julian Phillips. And he started with Josh Giddey sitting out this game. 23 points in 28 minutes. He goes 7 of 11 from the field, 3 of 6 from the three-point line. Now, if you've been listening to this postcast, I'm a big Julian Phillips guy. I think he's going to be a good contributor from the bench for this team as long as he's on the roster. Now, as the Bulls get to the offseason, we'll see what kind of decisions they make about who's on this roster in the 2025-2026 season. I think Phillips will be here. I just think him and Terry, those guys are the ones where teams that are looking for quality depth pieces on their bench, if the Bulls are going to, reset for some reason or and go in a different direction than expected, maybe they would get calls on them and maybe they will answer them. But Phillips really good in this game. I like him a lot, and I think he'll be important to get out of the play-in tournament for the Bulls. Obviously, as will, Josh Giddey. You're going to need him. I mean, he'll be healthy. He is healthy. They're just sitting him out and resting him at this point in the season. So Julian Phillips, 23 points. Matas Buzelis, 20 points. Nikola Vucevic, only 15 points on the night. He had 9 points in the first quarter. So pretty quiet night for him. But again, you didn't need him. Kobe White, 16 points. Didn't need him. Plus 30 on the night with 16 points. Just shows you how much the Bulls were just dominating the Wizards in this game. So overall, easy peasy night for the Chicago Bulls. Now, we did see Talen Horton-Tucker be the first man off the bench. So your leading bench minute guys are THT with 24 minutes, Patrick Williams with 23, Zach Collins with 20. So what's interesting about that is Billy Donovan obviously has had a pretty expansive, bench unit this entire season. I'm curious now, because it's a one-game series, you think it's going to tighten up a little bit. So you think like normally a playoff series or a playoff game, like you're going to go 8 to 9 guys in your rotation. So what does that look like? Obviously, your starting 5 of Buzelis, Vooch, Kobe, Herter, and Josh Giddey are in there. And I don't think Taylor Horton-Tucker will be impactful, but the one thing about him is he's so fearless with shooting the basketball that if they're struggling against the Miami Heat or then against the Atlanta Hawks or Orlando Magic trying to be the 8th seed, I could see Billy Donovan in the playoffs actually using THT as a reason to try to spark the bench and spark the Bulls in the play-in tournament. I don't expect it, but he of the guys that are like towards the bottom of the bench, but he's the one that we could see minutes from. Obviously, Julian Phillips, so we'll see minutes from Patrick Williams, of course, Zach Collins. But I just wonder what we'll see from THT in the playoffs, and just think he might be a guy that Billy Donovan might try to just use as the kind of energizer bunny if it's needed in the play-in tournament. I'll be honest, the more I've thought about it, I talked about this a while ago when it was very clear that the Bulls were not going to be tanking at this point in the season, not doing what the Wizards were doing. I'm actually just kind of excited at this point for the play-in tournament, even though I shouldn't be. We probably shouldn't be. We probably should be a little annoyed of the way this team has gone and not just blowing it up at the deadline. But to be honest with you, I'd rather just see at this point, I want to see what Matas Buzelis looks like when things get a little bit tighter. What does it look like with Josh Giddey specifically? And obviously we were hoping Lonzo Ball was going to make a return at some point this season. And we're going to do this more on Sunday. Sunday's, show is going to be a blowout. Probably either way. Now that the 9 seed is clinched, we'll probably see most of the bench guys play. Sunday's postcast show will kind of be a season recap. We won't do a player of the game. We'll do a player of the year, turning point of the season, not turning point of the game, stuff like that, and what you'll be talking about going into the play-in tournament into the offseason. But, I'm just curious, thinking what this team's going to look like next Wednesday when they host the Miami Heat. And, Josh Giddey's the one where his style of play has worked out so well. And I think the advantage they have over the Heat, Hawks, and Magic is even though he's not had major minutes, and it's the reason why he wanted out of Oklahoma City in the playoffs, because he got benched basically, or was coming off the bench. Josh Giddey is going to be the reason why they do or do not advance in the play-in tournament. Yes, Kobe White will be a major factor, as will Vooch and Buzelis, but I think it's going to really rest on Josh Giddey's shoulders how far they go. Because when he has these great offensive nights, obviously not just scoring, but passing the ball as well, he changes the tone for the Chicago Bulls. And if he's attacking at will, like we've seen him do, we will see the Bulls be more effective offensively when they play the Heat, and they swept the Heat this year. So the Heat haven't gotten much, which the gambling man in me says that favors the Heat mightily because the odds should swing in favor of them at some point this season. But I will be picking the Bulls to end up being the 8th seed and taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round of the real NBA playoffs. All right, we'll take a break. We'll talk about a couple other moments from this game. Obviously, we saw a really cool moment with this young lady named Ida who attended her first Bulls game. We'll talk about Stacey King and just other things as well from tonight's game. All coming up next here on the Locked On Bulls postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Today's show brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 points or more in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off, the next day from noon to midnight. So Saturday, if someone drops 50, you can use Dash Pass and get up to 50% off an order, up to $10 off, and order the next day for the Bulls' final regular season game of this season. You can sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when any player scores 50 or more in a game. Dash Pass members get 50% off and order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50, that's NBA50, from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account, so sign up for that now. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Today's show also brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. I'll be heading back to Chicago for a conference coming up in May, and I've already used Gametime to buy tickets for a 120 game for the Cubs against the Giants. That's how I got my tickets. That's how you should get yours as well. It is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Sports. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, a couple other notes from this game before we wrap up, because obviously it's a blowout, so we'll go a little bit on the shorter side of the 15 to 20 minutes tonight. But the Bulls, again, they dominated this game. So before we get any further, let's get to our Locked On Player of the Game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Julian Phillips is the Locked On Player of today's game. First career game, scoring 20 points or more, well deserved. The other nomination I would say for Locked On Player of the Game, mainly because you got to help a brother out. Like, help a guy out, man. Like, get him some rest. Stacey King, get that guy off the mic. He's got a playoff game to call. We need Stacey King at full capacity for the playing game. That guy was struggling throughout this entire broadcast. If you're watching on television, he was losing his voice all over the place. So Julian Phillips, and then a shout out to Stacey King for his performance tonight as well, are our Locked On Player of the Game. All right, one fun story from this game that I really enjoyed. So it went very viral on Twitter, on Instagram, anywhere you can find it. It was all over the place. So there's this lady named Ida, 95 years old, got surprised by, after her family started reaching out for tickets, for figuring out the handicap situation, things like that. So she needed a wheelchair to get in and out of the game. They take the video for telling her that she's going to go to her first ever Chicago Bulls game at 95 years old. It's funny. It's like that. First of all, game time. That's what you need, game time to get to these games sooner than that. But it sounds crazy to me to think someone's a diehard Bulls fan. They have to wait that long. But really cool, fun story from this last game, fan appreciation night, last home game of the season. And I've talked about this before, but kind of tying in Ida with the entire year. It's been really cool to see, I think, the Bulls fans this year. I think it's unfortunate in a way, but fortunate in another of what Bulls fans are. Because it's unfortunate because I think it gives the Reinsdorfs a false sense of hope and realization of what their fans are, or what they can get away with for their fans, because they're the best fans in the league. I mean, this team should have blown it up at the deadline. They've now made the play-in tournament. And no matter how bad it got leading up to the deadline, throughout the year, when Zach LaVine wouldn't score until the second quarter, or they've had 7 plus 18, 19, 20 point comebacks throughout the entire year. Bulls fans have been there, and they've been largely terrible at home this season. They were way better on the road than they were at home. They're this is going to be, I think this needs to update still. They're still to finish the year 5 games below 500 at home. But Bulls fans have been absolutely incredible this season, and at least the ones, I hope that for the play-in tournament, for the playing game against the Miami Heat, I hope it's mostly fans who've enjoyed this year, have been to these games, are the ones that are going to be there against the Miami Heat, and not kind of what we see typically in the playoffs where ticket prices go sky high. So shout out to Bulls fans, shout out to the Bulls for making this happen for Ida. Really cool story from this game tonight. All right, one thing before we wrap up today's show, let's get to what you'll be talking about after this game.
This is what you'll be talking about.
I think at this point, besides just the play-in tournament, the conversation still around the Chicago Bulls really seems to be around Josh Giddey and his contract situation for the Bulls. Obviously, there's nothing from this game we'll be talking about besides a fun story with a very nice old lady going to her first Bulls game. But the big thing about this one is you made the play-in tournament, you're there again, and the question will be amongst Bulls fans is, are you happy with this end result? Before the season would have started, I would have said no, trying to kind of moving the goalpost a little bit for what we saw post-deadline. My answer will be yes, because it was very clear, if they're not going to tank it out, that this is what their goal was, and at least they accomplished that. And again, I think the Bulls are going to come out of the play-in tournament. I think they're going to be the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. I think they're going to beat the Miami Heat on Wednesday, and then the next day they will play the loser of the Hawks and Magic game. And I think they'll be fighting for the 8th seed. My guess is they'll be playing the Atlanta Hawks, and I think they'll beat the Atlanta Hawks again to be the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. So that's what I think Bulls fans will be talking about, is trying to decide what side of this they are on. Are they happy with what's happened this season, or are they not? Because the Bulls are, again, in the play-in tournament against, again, the Miami Heat. Right now, it feels like they are just destined to be doing that all the time. All right, that will do it for us today. We'll be back here live on Sunday on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out with us, either on video or on audio. Remember, you can hit that subscribe button on YouTube as well, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Just find Locked On Bulls for the audio version, Locked On Sports Chicago for the video. So we will talk to you Sunday after the Bulls season finale, and then again on Wednesday night for hopefully many playoff games, but at least one against the Miami Heat when they play in the play-in tournament in the 9 versus 10 matchup. Thanks for watching. Talk to you on Sunday. Peace.